first sheriff in American history to sue the federal government. I sued the Clintons, beat them at the U.S. Supreme Court, and lived to tell about it. Now there's a miracle. They threatened to arrest us if we failed to comply. This is what I do. I train sheriffs in the Constitution. I train public officials, cops, whoever, the public, how to work with their sheriffs and how to restore the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. And I use my Supreme Court case.
Sheriff, welcome to the World XP podcast. How you doing today?
Great to be with you, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to do a quick intro for the people, who you are and what you do, and then we'll hop into the rest of it?
Yeah, sure. Sheriff Richard Mack, and that's a title that has stuck with me. I haven't been sheriff for like 28, 29 years now. It seems like yesterday in a lot of ways, but I actually was the son of an FBI agent, and I tried to get in the FBI, and that didn't work out. While I was working my way through college, I got a part-time job at the Provo Police Department in Utah, and I really liked it. And the FBI thing never worked out. I was really disappointed, and now I'm grateful to God that I never got in the FBI. And so anyway, I moved home in 1988 to run for sheriff in my hometown. My wife and I are both there, same place where my dad served as an FBI agent. And that was all really miraculous. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to move home and run for sheriff. But my wife and I received the epiphany together and said, we're supposed to be doing that. And then I served as sheriff of Graham County, Arizona, Southeast Arizona, for 8 years. And during that time, I became the first sheriff in American history to sue the federal government. I sued the Clintons, beat them at the U.S. Supreme Court, and lived to tell about it. Now there's a miracle. And
Yeah.
and so the case is the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of our country. It was probably the only time the federal government has been sued for overreach, for trying to go too far into the states and counties. Justice Scalia wrote the decision for the majority, and we can discuss this case because this is what I do for a living now. This is what I do. I train sheriffs in the Constitution. I train public officials, cops, whoever, the public, how to work with their sheriffs and how to restore the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. And I use my Supreme Court case, and I studied the case for days and days, and then I put the highlights and best parts in this little booklet.
Very
And this is
nice.
on the front page of our website. Look, it's really small. You can read it in 10 minutes, but you really want to study it because it is the most powerful 10th Amendment miraculous state sovereignty case in the history of our country. And again, it's the only time in U.S. history where a couple of sheriffs sued the federal government and won.
Very nice. So obviously we'll get into that a little bit more. But the question from
Yeah.
the last guest kind of goes back to a little bit of your early career, which is if you had to give somebody just starting out in your field a piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, sometimes I immediately just a knee-jerk reaction say, don't do it, but no, to be honest with you, to be completely blunt about that, we need good people in law enforcement. And so don't go in as a constitutional officer right off the bat because we want you to stay in office. If you're always quoting the Constitution and telling me, because I got that reputation, but I didn't start that way. When I first started as a cop, I was just a mainstream ticket writer, and I've had to repent for that, and I'm serious, really repent, because when I read the Eighth Amendment and discovered that no excessive fines or bail, nor cruel and unusual punishment, I discovered that traffic tickets are all four of those problems, and it's just revenue generation. So what I want sincere men and women who know and understand the Constitution, know and understand the oath of office, and know and understand the role of today's peace officer in preserving our Constitution and protecting the rights of the people. That's what it's about. And that's why we need good people in office. We need good sheriffs, good patrol officers, good detectives who put those principles first in the execution of their job. So I say, yes, join, become a cop, work your way up, run for sheriff, and and be dedicated to the holy cause of liberty while you're that person, while you're that public servant.
Yeah, I want to. I was listening to a few of your interviews before, kind of in preparation for this,
Mhm.
and one of the things that you mentioned and that has been kind of top of mind for me, at least the last couple months, of course, a few months ago, as of the time of this recording, the sort of ICE or Customs Border Patrol fiasco in Minnesota, and I wanted to get your thoughts on because I think a lot of people they just lump all of law enforcement together, whether it's federal or local or state. And
Yeah,
so one of the things that you've been mentioning and you mentioned on the other interview is kind of the differentiation between your local sheriff and the federal government, whether it's the FBI or some other federal agency. And
yeah.
so how should people be thinking about these agencies in terms of their relationships between your local sheriff department and maybe a federal agent that's coming in to do an investigation? We saw this as well with the Charlie Kirk assassination, where the UVU police have some jurisdiction, but the FBI is doing things as well. So how should people be thinking about that, and what are some good ways for people to maybe differentiate, understand who's supposed to be doing what, and that sort of thing?
Well, a lot of times law enforcement doesn't know. So, and the Charlie Kirk case was a typical example of that. God rest his soul. That just absolutely tore my heart out.
Hmm.
Uh, that's Orem, Utah, which is right next to Provo, Utah, where I used to serve as a cop. And my daughter graduated from that college. And so I'm very familiar with all the agencies there. I'm very familiar with the school and the campus, and that part also tore my heart out. But we need to know and understand jurisdiction in this country, and the people of our country need to know that too. There is only one elected law enforcement position in this country, and that position is the office of sheriff. And the sheriff answers only to we the people, we the people in his county. We appoint the sheriff through the electoral process. We get to determine every 4 years if we want to keep him or get rid of him. He has to walk a very fine line to please as many of the voters in his county that he can. People think that's too political. No, just the opposite. It forces him into a position to protect the rights of the people equally and to really serve the people equally and with dedication. The chief of police can ignore the people and just please the city council. Okay? And they both swear the same oath. And that is key to all of this. The FBI, the IRS, the all the other federal police agencies, the sheriff, the chief of police, all the state police, all swear an oath of allegiance to the Constitution, required by the supreme law of the land, Article 6 of the Constitution. And so the question is, are the people making sure that all of those officers keep their oath? And if we would just have all the police in this country, or a good portion of them, keep their oath, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. We wouldn't need your show. We wouldn't need the constitutional sheriff movement. But we've never needed the constitutional sheriff more than we do now. And that's not a slight on Donald Trump. It's a slight on the Democrat Party that continuously wants to destroy the principles upon which America was founded. Are there Republicans that do that too? Oh, yes. But I'll go to my grave saying that the Democrats are worse, 10 times worse than the normal average Republican. But the Republicans have got to toe the line, and they've got to stand with the principles of freedom, just like everybody else. And Trump doesn't know the Constitution very well in some aspects. I'm really glad he did what he did in securing the border when he first got in. That had to happen first, and he did it. He's done some defunding Planned Parenthood. I still don't know how far or to what extent that went, but that should have never happened. And if people want to talk about in Washington D.C. paying back tariffs, how about Planned Parenthood paying us back all the money that taxpayers have given them over the past 30 years? Because they're not a government entity and they should get no taxpayer money. None of us, whether you like abortion or not, none of us have a governmental responsibility to pay for our neighbor's abortion. None of us. Okay. So that's one of the biggest criminal expenditures that has ever happened in our country. But I also like what Trump did in pardoning all the political prisoners of J6. That was absolutely horrible. And the Democrats did that 100%. It was a setup. I did not go to January 6th. I told all of our people not to go because I smelled a rat from the get-go. And did I know it was going to go down like it was? Of course not. I did not know people were going to be climbing all over the walls or people breaking into the Capitol. I would never have supported that, never did. But I told people not to go. We have hats all over the country. A lot of people wear our hats. There wasn't one of these at J6 on any of the films anywhere.
Mm.
Okay. And we didn't go. And that was a fiasco also, but it was just fine with the Democrats. That state, the U.S. Capitol police officer shot and killed Ashley Babbitt.
Yeah.
They thought that was fine. And so this is the problem. They turn everything into politics and excuse making, and none of them ever said anything about all the murders and rapes of the illegal aliens that they brought in. And now they're still defending that all these illegal aliens stay in our country so that they can do what? Get registered to vote even the day of the election. So anybody who's vacationing from Argentina or from China could walk into a polling place in New York or LA or Phoenix, go in, get registered to vote, vote right then and there, go home the next day to Argentina and brag to La Prensa newspaper how they voted in America, and there would be nothing we could do about it.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at is some of the things that you mentioned in terms of the federal government has policies that it wants to enact, but how much power does like for the people listening who feel maybe a bit helpless, like they can't do anything about it or like their vote doesn't matter, how much power does the sheriffs or the local police departments actually have to say like no, we're going to arrest these people or like how does that battle of jurisdiction work? That's kind of what I was getting at with the original question. I mean, there's definitely certain issues where there's disagreements between localities and state and federal governments, but like how does that actually work once it comes down to it? So for example, there's been states that have said we're not going to cooperate with ICE, but how does that actually work in practice?
No
Like for
sheriff, no sheriff and no state has to cooperate.
hmm
They can't be forced to. And I had that conversation personally with Tom Homan, and he totally agreed. He said, "You're right." He said, "I've been in law enforcement before, but every sheriff and every chief of police should be helping. You want to keep it effective? You want to keep it peaceful? You want to make sure that protesters are being protected? Then the sheriffs and chiefs of police should be out there doing their damn job.
mm,
And they should be making sure that no one's attacking ICE. And if the sheriffs and local police had been there that day, Renee Good would not have been killed. They would have made sure that she was under control. She was out of control. And the officer was within his rights as far as lethal force is concerned as soon as he got hit by the car. However, I would not have taken that shot. No way. And no other cop did, except for the one who had been dragged earlier by another vehicle 2 months before. That does not give him any more reason to shoot Renee Good at that time. That doesn't change the facts of the case right then and there. He doesn't get to go, well, I got dragged last time, so I get to shoot this one. No, you don't. Sorry. And I don't want to begrudge this officer because I wasn't there, but I've been in similar situations before. And so I personally would not have taken that shot. And criminally, I think he'll be exonerated, but civilly, I think he's going to be in trouble.
Mm,
But the whole case is sheriffs not getting involved in the criminal activity in Los Angeles. Los Angeles City is in Los Angeles County, and the sheriff has concurrent jurisdiction. He has county-wide jurisdiction, and the people of Los Angeles City vote to elect who the sheriff is. And he still has a reason to serve all of them. He should have gone to Sheriff Luna, should have gone to the chief of police and to the mayor and said, I'm not going to put up with this violence and this chaos anymore. I want to work with you both, but if you're not going to cooperate, then I'll do it on my own. And if I need to call in federal agents to control this, I will. And he has the authority to do that. He can call in neighboring sheriffs to come help him. But this is the thing, answer to jurisdiction. The federal government has very little jurisdiction in your community, very little. And as a matter of fact, what did I sue the federal government on? The 10th Amendment. And it says the powers not delegated. Delegated. Now, there's a good question right there. Who delegated these powers to the new federal government? We did. The
mhm.
states. The
Yeah.
states formed the federal government, not the other way around. And these stupid experts that are out there in the world, like Mary McCord and a few others, that say that the federal government, that the states granted the federal government supremacy over us, and that they were granted all these bureaucracies and the IRS and all these taxes and the income tax and the United Nations and all these other stupid things, that we granted all of that to the federal government to do as they will and to tell us what to do, worse than King George III did when we fought the Revolutionary War. So no, we've gone way too far. The states have allowed the federal government to go too far, but so have we, the people. We've all gone to sleep, and it's time to wake up.
Hmm. I think maybe I should have asked this at the very beginning, but you've mentioned the difference between a sheriff and chief of police. I think for a lot of people that are have no clue, can you just real quickly describe the difference between the two aside from the fact that the sheriff is elected? Like
Elected.
what in terms of the responsibilities and what they're meant to be doing?
Yes, the sheriff runs the jail, the county jail. There's very few cities who run their own jail. They use the county jail, and some of the largest cities maybe they do. I don't know if Los Angeles City has a jail. I don't think so, but they could. No place that I was familiar with does. The sheriffs in Arizona all run the county jail. The cities take advantage of that and use it when they make an arrest and take somebody to jail. But there's some other differences here, and one again is jurisdiction. The gentleman's agreement between the sheriff and the chief of police is that the chief of police handles all police calls within the city limits. So if it's Los Angeles or Portland, Multnomah County is Portland. Portland's in Multnomah County. And so any calls outside the city limits go to the sheriff's office. And so it's also simple that where the loyalties of the chief of police lie, he is loyal and answers to the city manager or the town manager and to the city council. That's it. And so you can go and complain to the city council about what the chief of police is doing. In the sheriff's office, you can go to the sheriff's office and talk to him. You go to the county commissioners and they'll say, I'm not the county commission, I'm not the county sheriff's boss. So can't you tell him? Well, I said I can talk to him just like you can, but he works for you.
Mm,
And I'm just another voter for the sheriff. Whether I vote for him or not is my business. So that's really key to this. And it's really part of what made us a constitutional republic in the first place. And that is that the people choose their representatives. If you want to know the truth, the chief of police should be elected also. because we want it that they answer to the people, and that's key. Jurisdictionally, the federal government only has 5 law enforcement powers that we delegated to them. That's very limited, but they need to know it, and we need to know it to remind them when they come into our counties. You don't have the authority to do this, and that they become in charge. That for instance, how they're in charge of uh, Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping. They're not, and the sheriff stayed in control. He asked them to come help, which in a lot of ways I probably would have too. They have the technology that a lot of small town sheriffs don't have and don't usually need. And I would have asked them in, but I would never have turned it over to them.
Mm,
And Utah on Charlie Kirk's, who was in charge of that investigation?
it
I
should
even
have.
asked I even asked a county attorney that in Utah, and he did not know. He wasn't the county attorney.
How do they not know who's in charge of their own investigation?
Yeah, I know, because the state police were involved, the sheriff's office was involved, and UVU police were involved. They're police officers. Orem Police really has the closest jurisdictionally geographically, but I still don't know who really was in charge. It looked like the FBI took over a lot of the things, but I don't know. And they go, well, let's see, you know. So it really was. I thought it was kind of Bush League when Cash Patel, and I like him, and we endorsed him when he got put in there. But I don't think he's done enough to really shake up the FBI. You know, and then they
No,
really need to be.
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
They needed to be. They 90% of it needed to be revamped and reorganized and abolished and then redone. But let's
So
go
on
over
that,
the five. Let's go over the 5 authorities
okay.
the federal government has. We delegated to them 5 law enforcement powers. Treason. Don't you wish the FBI would investigate treason? Uh, Second, counterfeiting. Third, felonies committed on the high seas or piracies. The states don't get to send boats out all over the world, and check the piracies. Four, securing our borders. That's Article 4, Section 4. They are to protect the state's borders from invasion. Okay? That's why ICE has authority to go out and get these people who the federal government allowed into our country. The Biden administration not only allowed, but sometimes flew these people in, which is treason. And
Yes, for people that think that that was a made up statement, go look it up. It's true
it's
and
not.
ridiculous. Anyways,
Go
keep
read
going.
go read Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. You'll see it. Number 5 is rather innocuous, but it's there. Violations of treaties. So if we have a treaty with Canada and somebody goes into Canada and violates whatever provisions of the treaty are there, that's a federal case. That's a federal offense. That's it. Do they get any more? No, because you got to read the 10th Amendment. Again, what we sued the federal government on. The powers not delegated to the federal government, to the United States government by the Constitution, remain with the states or with the people, respectively. Shows you how powerful the people are. But
Mm,
we are the ultimate power in this country. We have the final say in just about every court case in the country, and I think that should be used actually more. For instance, in about only half the states allow you a jury for a traffic ticket. The other states are unconstitutionally taking away that right.
mm. So last kind of question before we get into the Supreme Court case and some more CSPOA related things. In terms of people that say, right, you just mentioned that people have a lot of power and the states have a lot of power based on the 10th Amendment. For people that are sitting there like, well, it doesn't matter who I elect in federal government because they're all the same and people liked Kash Patel when he was on Sean Ryan's show and saying that he was gonna dismantle the FBI and do all these things, and then it doesn't appear that or the optics aren't good or
Yeah.
whatever. People who are very maybe feeling a little bit helpless, like even regardless of party, they feel like they're all the same. The term uniparty gets thrown around a lot, things like that. What would you say to those people who, in terms of they want to be involved, they want to make an impact, but they feel like they can't. What would you say, or what is some advice that you'd give to those sorts of people in terms of where should they focus their energy? What sorts of things should they be looking at? What sorts of things should they be reading and knowing in order to make the most impact? Like, what would you say to those kinds of people?
I would say join the CSPOA. And that's what I've been trying to get people to do for the last 10 years. If you join with us, we train you how to work with your sheriff. The sheriff and we the people are key. The sheriff with his posse, that's us, that's the people. That is absolutely key. There's lots of sheriffs that use posses in this country. They don't realize, some of them don't realize that their search and rescue squad is actually a posse. Most sheriff's offices in this country have a volunteer search and rescue squad. I want to expand that to other areas where you're riding along with deputies, that you're helping in the jail, that you're helping with communications, that you're helping and being the eyes and ears for the sheriff's office and for your sheriff. You and the sheriff can erect the barriers. That's a quote from James Madison. Erect the barriers against the encroachments of the national authority. There is a way, and I have numerous cases where sheriffs have done that, and it's all been nonviolent. And that's the key to all of this. Our solution is peaceful but effective. And I could, Sheriff Brad Rogers stood against the FDA and told them to stay out of his county and to leave the Amish farmers alone unless they had probable cause. They would just go on farmers' property and do a spot inspection without probable cause, due process, or duly signed warrants. Sheriff Rogers said, "You'll come in here with the duly signed warrants and probable cause, or I will arrest you for trespassing." Then they threatened to arrest him. And then both he and I devised a letter, and they pulled back. Not just pulled back, they never came back. And so there's been lots of sheriffs that have stood up. And I tell you, what I know for sure is that the federal government, federal bureaucrats do not want to fight with your sheriff. Most of them know that the sheriff is the head law enforcement officer, the CLEO, the chief law enforcement officer. Guess what Justice Scalia says in his introduction to the Supreme Court case? Yeah, he says, the answer to the CLEO's challenge, that was me and Sheriff Printz, the sheriffs. He's talking about the CLEOs, the chief law enforcement officer. This is a huge declaration. This is a huge principle that is in a Supreme Court case. The sheriff is the CLEO. Most chiefs of police know that. They don't want to admit it. They don't like saying that because it hurts their pride. But the sheriff is the CLEO.
Okay,
And
so
so,
so let's go into the Supreme Court case then, as we've kind of naturally gotten there. So what was the incident that led to, right? I mean, if people are listening, generally speaking, cases don't go right to the Supreme Court. They go through local courts and appeals and
we
local
did.
federal
We
courts
started the
and things like that.
district courts first.
All right. So what is the incident that leads to this whole process kicking off?
Yeah, okay. It was called the Brady Bill. Okay. Do you remember the Brady Bill?
Nope, it's probably happened before I was born.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, you're too young. Come on. But it was the Brady Bill, and it was the first time the Brady Bill was the first time in history where it attempted to commandeer and conscript what the sheriffs can and cannot do. And in fact, they have no jurisdiction over your sheriff. Okay, none. Okay, because can the federal government fire me as sheriff? No.
No,
Can they hire me?
no,
No, it's absolutely absurd. So if they want to work with me, they can come to a meeting and come to the sheriff's state sheriff's association meeting and say, we would like you to consider doing this and this and this, and we'll pay you. Well, a lot of sheriffs already have contracts with the Federal Bureau of Prisons to take over some of their, if they get too full, to take some of their inmates. I had that contract.
Mm. Can I
They had to
can I
sign it, and I
interject
had to
real
sign it.
quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
In like pop TV, like when you're watching like police shows.
I don't like them.
Oh, I was about to get there because they always make the sheriffs look like a hindrance to
Yeah,
the like agents that are doing stuff, and that just clicked in my head right now. And
yeah.
anyways, sorry, keep
One
going.
movie that did that was The Fugitive. And
Mm.
Tommy Lee Jones was the FBI guy, big federal agent. He goes, who puts me in charge? Well, the United States Congress, that's who. No, they don't have any authority to do it either. So anyway, it was the Brady Bill, and that was the first time that ever that I've ever been able to see that they were trying to commandeer the office of sheriff, and they threatened to arrest us if we failed to comply. The Brady Bill was a quote, quoting Justice Scalia, a federal gun control scheme, and end quote. And so one is I've taken an oath to uphold and defend the Second Amendment. And they wanted us to decide who could or who could not purchase a handgun in our county.
Mm.
And if I just didn't like you, I could just say, you don't get it. And then there's no recourse. If it gave way too much power to the sheriff, we already have the right to keep and bear arms. And I don't believe in permits. Permits, getting permission from government to do that which is already guaranteed in the Bill of Rights. No, that's totally illegal.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, we had to do background checks and waiting periods, and we got to say who could get a gun. And then if we failed to comply, they threatened the sheriffs, the Cleos, with a year in prison and a $10,000 fine. And I said, "You got to be kidding me!" And get this, Eric, right? I
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure I got your name right. Yeah, Eric. I see your name. Eric, this is absolutely astonishing. I was the only sheriff in the entire country for 6 weeks that was doing this case against the federal government, against the Clintons. No other sheriff in Arizona wanted to help. And I was really disappointed because I love these guys and they were really good people. Nobody wanted to do this.
What was it, fear, or they just didn't want to, or was too much? Like
I
they
think
didn't
it
want to
was
get
I
bogged
think it was
down in.
I think it was all of that. I thought that they believed that fighting the federal government was useless. Some of them, these other sheriffs were much more vociferous and cussing like heck about what was going on. 3 agents of the BATF brought us a document that detailed our marching orders from Congress and the White House. And
Mm.
they were, I mean, they were F-bombing. They were like throwing every cuss word in the world. I wasn't even talking at the time. I was the youngest sheriff in the state at the time. And I'm just going, gosh, what do we do? I thought maybe these guys would come up with a solution. By the end of the day, the president of the association asked each of us what we wanted to do. And every one of them acquiesced, every one of them. And I said, all of you totally have convinced me that we should not be doing this. And I'm not going to do it. And they just kind of ignored me like, yeah, sure, kid. And they went on with their work. And most of them said this though, at least 6 of them, half of them said this. Um, you can't fight City Hall. We'll just have to do the best we can. Who wants you to believe you can't fight City Hall? City Hall does,
Yeah.
and so and then Sheriff Printz from Montana joined the case 5 or 6 weeks later, and then 5 other sheriffs from across the country. So 7 of us did this. 2 of us went to the Supreme Court. That was Sheriff Printz and myself. And then the decision came out, and this fight actually cost me my 3rd election
Mm.
because people said he's wasting his time. We don't want an activist sheriff. We want we're a small town. We want a sheriff. If he wants to be an activist in Washington, D.C., tell him to run for Congress. So, and I couldn't disagree with him because I didn't think we were going to the Supreme Court. I didn't think we were going to win after we were granted the case in the Supreme Court. And it was just all of that was such a miracle. And so my wife told me I was really disappointed about my third election that we lost. She goes, look, we weren't looking for a job when we got this one. And we're supposed to be going to do other things. Well, since that time, I've been to every state in the union. I've written 7 books. And the other book that I would tell you for your answer about what we should be reading,
Mm-hmm.
every citizen should read that book. The
Mm.
County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. It's only 50 pages. It's very small. It's kind of like Thomas Paine pamphleteering. And you should get that book off my website. And then this one. You get those two books and maybe the other one, The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, which is only 30 pages. This is 50. You get these three books. You get those three books. And let me show you, I've got it in my box here. Okay, yeah, these three books. Okay. Proper Role of Law Enforcement. Look at that rookie cop there. Huh? Yeah. The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, the County Sheriff, America's Last Hope, and the Supreme Court case. You want to talk about a college level education in proper jurisdiction and what law enforcement and the oath of office and what law enforcement role is in preserving our God-given republic. These three books are absolutely the best. They're vital. The other one is you joining. The CSPOA was formed for you. When all government should become venal and oppressive, to whom can the American people turn for peace, safety, and protection and liberty? That's your sheriff. And that's what these books talk about. And that's what this case presents. Let me quote one quote. I'm probably going to end up doing two or three, but at least these two, because it talks about jurisdiction in here, and Scalia talks about the proper sphere of authority. The proper sphere of authority. The federal government's the sphere of authority is extremely small. They're limited. Like I told you, the 5 law enforcement powers. The federal government has stolen and usurped thousands of powers they were never constitutionally allowed to have, including the existence of an IRS.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to stop gun control? You want to secure the Second Amendment? Your sheriff and you working with him is the ultimate authority in your county. And sheriffs have already saved the Second Amendment 3 or 4 times in the history of our country, just within the last 50 years, probably within the last 30 years. And our case was one that did it also, because there were 5 Brady bills scheduled to be passed until the Second Amendment would have been stopped entirely. And our case stopped Brady bills 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's one time. Now get this one. The different governments will control each other at the same time that each will be controlled by itself. The different governments. A double security arises to the rights of the people if and when the different governments control each other. So it's the sheriff's job to do that. It's the city council's job. It's the county commissioners. It's your governors. It's your state legislature. Same thing. And then get this about this really hits home on a lot of different issues, but the order of the court is a huge one also. I want you to read that yourself, and you can look up the case on the internet if you want, Mack VUS, and it'll get you a thing. But I've saved you a lot of time, put all the highlights in here. So do it either way. Tell me this doesn't hit home to COVID-19 mandates. But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location. Now get this, as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day. End quote.
Yep. Yep.
Folks, it's here. Everything we wanted the Supreme Court to ever say, because they're not using, Scalia didn't use political dogma baloney.
Mm-hmm.
He took us through a history lesson. He even tells us that at the beginning. I'm going to take you through a history lesson. That's why it's one of the most powerful cases in the history of our country. And most of you have never even heard about it.
Yeah, it's not one that's highlighted for sure. What was it like going into the Supreme Court? Did
Oh,
talk to me about that before. I know you got to get out of here in a little bit, but that was one thing that I really wanted to ask you is like, what's it like to go in there?
I still got about 7 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
But folks, that was the most awesome, miraculous experience in my entire career. I took my son and daughter, who were still in high school at the time, I took them with me. The Secret Service has every seat assigned. They know who's in every seat inside the Supreme Court. My kids weren't allowed to go. Then the morning we're getting ready at the hotel to go over to the Supreme Court, a Secret Service person, maybe a receptionist, calls my attorney and said, Mack's kids can go in with him. We had 2 seats open up at the last minute.
Amazing.
I got to share that experience with my son and my daughter. They've never forgotten it. I was interviewed by G. Gordon Liddy right afterwards. And then I told him that my daughter wanted to ask him questions about Watergate. And he said, bring her on right now. We have that tape where G. Gordon Liddy was interviewed by my daughter, 14-year-old high school student, interviewing the main player in Watergate about what he did.
That's
And
amazing.
then they still remember the case. In fact, they remember some of the things that the Supreme Court Supreme Court justices said during the case, and I didn't even remember that part. But Justice Scalia was very talkative. Clarence Thomas never said a word, and that's his MO. I found out. The liberal judges just kept saying, "Oh, of course, the federal government can tell the states what to do, of course." And then Scalia said, and this is in the case. This is in my Supreme Court case. It's in here. He says, so you just want to make the states puppets of a ventriloquist Congress. How's that for one? Puppets of a ventriloquist Congress. The states are not puppets of a ventriloquist Congress. And that's very clear in there. Also, in another place, he says the states are not subject to federal direction.
Mm.
Don't you wish your state knew that? It's in here. It's in
Yeah.
that case. So,
Yeah.
and then each side gets 30 minutes. And we were in there. Well, we got seated a half hour before it got started, but the case itself lasted 60 minutes. And each side got 30 minutes. And I'm not talking 30 minutes and 15 seconds, 30 minutes each. That's it. When the when the federal government went first, I thought we were going to lose. But or when we went first, I thought we were going to lose. Then the federal government got up and they got fried to a crisp, asking how they tried to justify this. And constitutionally, that's what Scalia said. Constitutionally, there is no justification for trying to commandeer the office of sheriff for federal bidding.
Mm.
We can cooperate. We can work out agreement with ICE. We can work out agreement with IBP, Federal Bureau of Prisons. We can help secure the borders. We can help federal agents. And we can also tell them to get out of our county. And that needs to happen a few times.
Yeah, I think that's a very succinct way to wrap this up a little bit. For people that don't know what CSPOA is, do maybe like a elevator pitch type thing and then tell the people where they can go find your books and the websites and all the rest of the stuff.
It's because when government becomes venal and oppressive, you have a place to go. You have a person in government to go to for help. Most people that call me this, I've tried everything. I've tried everything. I said, have you tried talking to your sheriff yet? Some say yes, most say no. Folks, we have to know that there is a peaceful and effective solution in every county. And it's you and your sheriff working together. We have a responsibility to be part of the holy cause of liberty today. If we're going to restore our Constitution as the supreme law of the land, we, the people, have to be involved in that process. Working with your sheriff is the most effective way to do that. And it remains peaceful. Folks, join us at cspoa.org. It's an $11 a month fee. That's it. We bless each other with that. You help us keep funded. That's the only fund. We don't get funded by the federal government like Planned Parenthood does. We get funded by the people of this country. We need you, and I guarantee you need us It's not a contract. If you don't want to stick with us, please don't. But I think you'll see the benefit of staying with us because we're just about the only peaceful and effective solution left. Join us at cspoa.org.
Very nice. And the books are there as well?
They're all there.
Awesome. Sounds good. Any last nickels before we get you out of here?
Yeah. The last line of the Declaration of Independence. Folks, this is what the founding fathers said to each other when they put their lives on the line for the Revolutionary War. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Folks, we must do the same today.
You've got that nice little bow on it, that's for sure. For those listening, thank you very much for your time. Go check the links out in the description. Again, merch stuff will be in links somewhere. Well, there'll be somewhere. Thank you for listening, and we will see you guys next time. Peace. Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you want to watch another episode like this one, click there. If you want to subscribe, click there.